One of them attacked his own wife during a breakdown and bit the head off a live bat on stage. One deliberately told 200,000 people to release their negative energy and watched a festival burn. One was thrown out of the band he helped found for drinking, fighting, and destruction, and spent the next 4 decades publicly furious about it. These aren't rumor. These aren't tabloid speculation. These are documented incidents, court records, and first-hand accounts from the people who were there. If you're not subscribed, do it now and turn on notifications. 15 rock stars, 15 real reputations, 0 sugarcoating. Stay until the end. Number 1's story is more complicated than most people know, and the full account is worth hearing. Let's go. Welcome back. This channel covers rock and metal history, straight facts, documentation, and context without the sanitized version. If you're not subscribed, do it now and turn on notifications. We put this out consistently, and this is exactly the kind of video that disappears from your feed if you're not following us. Now, 15 names. Starting at the bottom and working up to the one who earned the top spot by accumulating decades of documented chaos across every dimension of his life. Number 15, Axl Rose. Guns N' Roses arrived in the late 1980s and rewrote what a hard rock band could look like commercially. Sweet Child O' Mine, Welcome to the Jungle, Paradise City, the catalog was legitimate and the commercial impact was real. Axl Rose's voice, range, and stage presence were genuinely exceptional. That part of the story is not in dispute. What's also not in dispute is the rest of it. Rose publicly called guitarist Slash a cancer to the band. In 1991, during a concert in Montreal, he spotted a fan photographing the show from the crowd, jumped into the audience to physically confront them, and walked off the stage. What followed was a full-scale riot. The crowd destroyed the venue. The incident was documented, filmed, and resulted in significant property damage and injuries. It remains one of the most referenced examples of frontman crowd management failure in rock history. His pattern of arriving hours late to scheduled performances was so consistent and so widely documented that it became a defining characteristic of the band's touring reputation, affecting not just fans, but venue staff, support acts, and promoters across multiple continents. In 2006, he was involved in a physical altercation with fashion designer Tommy Hilfiger at a party. The incident generated press coverage independent of anything music-related. The combination of genuine talent and genuinely destructive behavior is what defines Rose's place on this list. The music was real. So was everything else. Number 14, Gene Simmons. Kiss built one of the most recognizable brands in the history of rock music. The makeup, the stage production, the fire breathing, the pyrotechnics, all of it was deliberate, carefully managed, and commercially brilliant. Rock and Roll All Night became a cultural artifact. The merchandise operation that Simmons built around Kiss remains a studied example of artist brand development, and Gene Simmons has been completely transparent about his priorities. He has stated openly and repeatedly that money is his primary motivation and that Kiss's decisions are made to maximize revenue. He treats that admission as something to be proud of. Some fans respected the honesty. Many others felt it confirmed that the music was secondary to the business calculation. His conduct in interviews has generated documented controversy. During an appearance on NPR with host Terry Gross, his behavior was widely reported as disrespectful, to the point that the interview became a referenced example of guest conduct in media circles. His public commentary on his personal life, specifically his repeated and detailed public claims about his sexual history, created sustained damage to his image as a family man over decades of interviews. Bandmate Ace Frehley's description of Simmons is on record. Frehley eventually left Kiss after years of internal conflict. His departure and his documented account of the interpersonal dynamics within the band form part of the permanent historical record of how KISS operated internally. Number 13. Lars Ulrich. Metallica is the biggest metal band in history by virtually any commercial metric. Lars Ulrich's drumming was foundational to establishing that. Enter Sandman, Master of Puppets. 1. The catalog is not debatable. The band's live performance record across 4 decades of touring is exceptional. The Napster lawsuit of 2000 is where Ulrich's public image fractured with a significant portion of Metallica's fanbase, and it has never fully recovered. Ulrich led Metallica's legal action against Napster and testified before Congress on the issue of illegal file sharing. His argument that artists deserved compensation for their work was not legally or logically unreasonable. The execution and the optics were the problem. The decision to report hundreds of thousands of individual Napster users by name, combined with the perception that one of the wealthiest bands in metal was pursuing college students for downloading MP3s, generated backlash at a scale that the band spent years managing. The documentary, Some Kind of Monster, captured Metallica's internal therapy sessions during their 2001 to 2003 recording period. Ulrich's arguments with James Hetfield during those sessions, filmed and released theatrically, became the primary public document of how dysfunction inside one of metal's biggest bands actually looked and sounded in real time. Ulrich has faced boos at concerts. He has been the subject of sustained mockery in pop culture references. A former assistant filed a lawsuit citing unfair treatment and unpaid overtime. These are documented facts, not characterizations. Number 12. Dave Mustaine. The thrash metal credentials are undeniable. Mustaine's early contributions to Metallica's developing sound are acknowledged by the members of Metallica themselves. His subsequent work building Megadeth into a commercially and critically successful band, Peace Sells, Symphony of Destruction, Countdown to Extinction, represents a genuine artistic achievement built after one of the most painful professional rejections in rock history. In 1983, Mustaine was removed from Metallica on a bus in New York City. The documented reasons: heavy drinking, physical altercations, and destructive behavior during the tour. He was handed a bus ticket home. He has discussed that moment in interviews across 4 decades, and his emotional response to it, the anger, the competitive drive to prove the decision wrong, has been a consistent narrative thread throughout his public life. With Megadeth, his treatment of bandmates, crew, and fans in specific documented incidents generated a sustained reputation for volatility, public feuds, interviews that created ongoing conflict, a pattern of harsh words directed at former collaborators that became a defining element of how the metal press covered him. He has reflected more openly on his past behavior in recent years. Whether that reflection represents genuine change or careful image management is a question his history leaves open. Number 11. Fred Durst. Limp Bizkit was one of the defining commercial acts of the late 1990s nu metal wave. Nookie, Break Stuff, Rollin' the Band had genuine mainstream penetration at a specific cultural moment, and Durst's rap rock energy was central to that. Woodstock '99 is the event that defines his place on this list. During Limp Bizkit's set at Woodstock '99, Durst explicitly told the crowd to release their negative energy during Break Stuff. What followed is documented in extensive video footage, subsequent journalism, and a Netflix documentary: fires, destroyed infrastructure, assaults, and injuries across the festival grounds. The environment had been deteriorating before Limp Bizkit's set, but Durst's direct incitement from the stage, with full knowledge of the crowd's condition, is on camera and not subject to interpretation. The additional documented record: publicly mocking Slipknot's fanbase as fat and ugly, publicly praising Vladimir Putin following the Crimea annexation, a 1,999 incident in which he kicked a security guard in the head on stage, interviews and lyrics containing documented homophobic language and misogyny, and a leaked private account of a relationship with Britney Spears that generated significant media coverage and almost universally negative public response. The Woodstock aftermath produced lawsuits and forced a band hiatus. The cumulative weight of that record has followed Limp Bizkit through every subsequent phase of their career. We're at the halfway point, and the names get heavier from here. Numbers 4 through 1 include serious abuse allegations, a fatal drunk driving incident, and the most iconic figure in heavy metal history, confronting the full consequences of what decades of addiction actually cost him and the people around him. Stay with us. Number 10. Liam Gallagher. Oasis was one of the most commercially dominant British rock bands of the 1990s. Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger. The catalog was enormous, and the fan base was genuine and global. Liam Gallagher's voice was a specific and irreplaceable instrument, and his stage presence was real. The internal relationship between Liam and Noel Gallagher is one of the most extensively documented sibling conflicts in music history. Public insults exchanged in interviews, physical confrontations backstage. A pattern of escalation across the full run of the band's active years that was never fully managed or resolved. The MTV Unplugged incident. Liam watched from a balcony while Noel performed in his place, shouting commentary at the audience during the taping. The behavior was documented on camera. The 2009 Paris backstage confrontation ended Oasis. The band broke up that night. Planned tours were canceled. One of the most anticipated ongoing acts in British music simply stopped existing because the interpersonal dynamic between its two central figures had reached a point with no available resolution. Liam's solo career produced mixed commercial results. The question of whether Oasis would ever reunite remained open for over a decade before circumstances changed. Number 9. Richie Blackmore. Deep Purple's catalog is foundational to the development of hard rock and heavy metal. Smoke on the Water, Highway Star, Child in Time, Blackmore's guitar work on those recordings set a standard that defined what the instrument could do in a hard rock context. Rainbow extended that influence with a different but equally significant body of work. The internal record is extensive and consistently documented. Blackmore fired band members without warning throughout his career. The turnover in both Deep Purple and Rainbow lineups is a matter of documented rock history. He set amplifiers on fire during performances, a behavior that created documented safety risks for people in the immediate vicinity. He broke guitars on stage regularly. He engaged in what multiple sources describe as dangerous pranks directed at crew and bandmates. Ronnie James Dio, one of the most respected vocalists in the history of heavy metal, left Rainbow citing Blackmore's controlling behavior, his treatment of fans, and his refusal to engage with the audience through basic interactions like autographs. That account comes from Dio directly. His public commentary about fellow musicians David Bowie, Alice Cooper, Sting and the Police, Eddie Van Halen, was consistently harsh in ways that went beyond musical criticism into personal dismissiveness. His treatment of former Deep Purple vocalist Rod Evans, whom he publicly mocked by name, is documented. Number 8. Yngwie Malmsteen. The technical achievement is not in question. When Malmsteen's Rising Force arrived in 1984, it genuinely redefined what was possible on electric guitar from a technical standpoint. The speed, the precision, the integration of classical compositional structure into a rock and metal context, all of it represented a real advancement in what the instrument could do. The personal record is what complicates everything. The 1988 airplane incident is one of the most documented behavioral events in guitar history. The details involve intoxication, a confrontation with a fellow passenger, and physical conduct that resulted in documented consequences. Malmsteen has addressed the incident in interviews. His version and the documented record are not identical. Former collaborators across multiple decades have described working with him in consistent terms. Strict and specific demands, limited patience for anything short of his expectations, and a personality that made sustained professional relationships difficult to maintain. The frequency of lineup changes throughout his career reflects this directly. The turnover in his bands has been exceptional even by the standards of a field where lineup instability is common. The cumulative effect on his career is real. The technical reputation remained intact. The collaborative reputation made it progressively harder to attract and retain the musicians and industry partners that wider commercial success requires. Number 7. Kid Rock. Kid Rock's commercial breakthrough in 1998 with Devil Without a Cause was genuine and substantial. The genre blending rap, rock, country, and a specific strand of American working-class identity connected with a large audience that felt represented by what he was doing musically. The documented behavioral record since then is extensive. A 2019 incident at his Nashville bar was captured on video and widely distributed. His conduct-specific language directed at specific public figures generated significant media coverage and public backlash. The footage exists and is not subject to interpretation. His public statements on political and cultural topics, combined with specific language choices and the use of imagery that many viewers found divisive, have resulted in boycotts, lost business partnerships, and sustained public controversy that extends well beyond his music. Documented confrontations and aggressive behavior in personal and public settings have compounded the record. He continues to tour and speaks publicly about his views without apology. The gap between his supporter base and his critics has not narrowed. Number 6. Robb Flynn. Machine Head's contribution to groove metal and modern heavy metal is legitimate and recognized within the genre. The Blackening, in particular, is a record that serious metal listeners and critics treated as a significant artistic statement. Flynn's intensity as a frontman and his commitment to the music are not in dispute. The 2018 Catharsis album and its aftermath represent the primary source of the controversy that places him on this list. Following the album's release, which received a significantly mixed critical response, Flynn used social media and band newsletters to publicly respond to critics at length, including a specific and documented dispute with Decibel magazine that became widely discussed in metal media circles. His public criticism of Phil Anselmo over a documented onstage incident generated significant response within the metal community, both support for taking a position and backlash for the manner in which he expressed it. The debate around how Flynn handles public disagreement and criticism has been a consistent element of how the metal press covers Machine Head, separate from the music itself. Number 5. Noel Gallagher. The songwriting record is exceptional by any measure. Wonderwall, Champagne Supernova, Don't Look Back in Anger, Half the World Away. Noel Gallagher wrote songs that defined a specific period in British popular music and connected with an audience across generations. The Beatles' influence was deliberate, and the craft was real. The interpersonal conduct is the other side of that record. His treatment of Liam across the full run of Oasis was not simply sibling friction expressed through music. It was a sustained pattern of public insults, private confrontations, and escalating conflict that was documented in real time through interviews, backstage accounts, and contemporaneous reporting. The physical element of their disputes is on record. His public commentary about other artists, dismissive, frequently harsh, sometimes personally targeted, generated a consistent reputation for arrogance that went beyond the confident self-belief that successful musicians often project. Multiple artists publicly responded to his comments over the years. The 2009 Paris incident that ended Oasis was the terminus of a trajectory that had been building for years. The band's dissolution cost both brothers commercially and ended one of the most significant ongoing acts in British rock at what could have been the beginning of another productive phase. Number 4. Marilyn Manson. The 1990s commercial and cultural impact was real. Antichrist, Superstar, Mechanical Animals, The Beautiful People. The records connected with a specific audience that felt the music represented something genuine about their experience as outsiders. The shock imagery, and the theatrical presentation were deliberate artistic choices that generated the intended response. Beginning in 2021, multiple women, including actress Evan Rachel Wood, publicly accused Manson of grooming, psychological manipulation, and abuse during past relationships. Additional lawsuits followed, containing allegations of coercion, threats, and systematic control. The volume and specificity of the accounts and the number of separate individuals providing them generated sustained and significant media coverage. Manson has denied the allegations and is contesting the claims through legal proceedings. The cases are ongoing. The documented institutional response. His record label terminated its partnership. Planned touring was canceled. Former collaborators publicly distanced themselves from him. Whatever the ultimate legal resolution of the pending cases, the wave of allegations and the institutional responses to them represent a fundamental and ongoing transformation of how his public legacy is perceived and discussed. Number 3. Ted Nugent. The guitar playing is documented, and the catalog is real. Cat Scratch Fever, Stranglehold, those tracks are part of the classic rock canon, and their commercial and cultural reach is not overstated. The public record of Nugent's statements is extensive, specific, and independently documented across decades of interviews, public appearances, and social media. His description of President Barack Obama using a phrase, subhuman mongrel, with documented historical associations to dehumanizing language, generated political and media backlash that extended well beyond the music. Press. The statement was made on camera and is not subject to dispute regarding what was said. His public commentary on political opponents, cultural figures, and specific demographic groups across multiple decades has accumulated into a record that is lengthy, specific, and widely reported. His lyrics, specifically Jailbait, evaluated against contemporary standards regarding the subject matter, have been the subject of sustained criticism that Nugent has consistently declined to address in the terms his critics raise. He continues to perform and advocate for his stated beliefs publicly. The debate about the relationship between his musical legacy and his public conduct remains active. Number 2. Vince Neil. The Mötley Crüe story is one of the defining narratives of 1980s glam metal. Girls, 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 Kickstart, My Heart, Doctor. Feel Good the catalog was commercially enormous, and the band's live reputation was built on genuine excess and genuine energy in equal measure. On the 8th of December, 1984, Vince Neil drove under the influence with Hanoi Rocks drummer Nicholas Razzle Dingwall in the passenger seat. The vehicle crashed. Razzle died. 2 occupants of another vehicle were seriously injured. Neil was convicted of vehicular manslaughter, received a sentence that included 30 days in jail, of which he served 18200 hours of community service and a fine. He also settled civil suits brought by the victims and their families. The sentence was widely criticized at the time and continues to be referenced as an example of the consequences available to celebrity defendants in serious criminal cases. Subsequent arrests, including DUI charges and assault-related incidents across multiple years, established a pattern that extended well beyond a single incident of tragic judgment. The 1984 crash is the event that defines Neil's place at number 2 on this list. A musician is dead because of a documented decision. That fact does not diminish with the passage of time. Number 1. Ozzy Osbourne. Black Sabbath created heavy metal. That is not hyperbole. It is the considered assessment of musicians, critics, and historians who have studied the development of the genre. Paranoid, Iron Man, War Pigs, Black Sabbath. Those recordings establish the sonic vocabulary and the thematic territory that every subsequent metal band has operated within or in reaction to. Ozzy Osbourne's voice is the instrument that delivered that vocabulary to the world. The behavior that places him at number 1 on this list spans decades and touches every dimension of his personal and professional life. The substance abuse record is extensive and documented across multiple memoirs, interviews, and contemporaneous reporting. The incidents it produced, including the stage moment involving a bat in 1982, public intoxication incidents across decades of touring, and destructive behavior that affected venues, hotel properties, and professional relationships, are part of the documented public record. In 1989, during what has been described as a blackout episode connected to alcohol and substance use, Ozzy Osbourne attacked his wife Sharon Osbourne with intent to kill her by his own subsequent account. He was arrested. He entered court-ordered treatment. Sharon Osbourne has spoken about the incident publicly. Ozzy Osbourne has addressed it in interviews with stated regret. The event is documented. What separates Ozzy's place at number 1 from every other name on this list is the full arc of what follows: the attack on Sharon, the rehab, the reconciliation with his family. Sharon not only remained with him, but became his manager and the architect of his career's second phase. The Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman solo records. The subsequent decades of performing through ongoing health struggles. The public openness about addiction and its consequences in a way that most musicians at his level never approached. The Parkinson's disease diagnosis and his continued commitment to music and performance despite it. The chaos was real. The damage was real. The reckoning with that damage was also real. And that's what makes his story the most complete and the most complicated on this entire list. 15 names, documented incidents, court records, first-hand accounts. Decades of conduct that built reputations the music alone couldn't cancel out. Drop a comment and tell me which name on this list surprised you most, either because you didn't expect them to be here or because the story was worse than you knew. I want to see that conversation in the comments. Subscribe if you haven't. Turn on notifications. This channel covers rock and metal with the depth and the honesty the history deserves. There's a lot more coming.